This is Frank at Bottom Line Ministries Debt Free. I'm so glad to see you again this evening, on this Wednesday evening. I hope that you've had a fantastic week, that everything's going well. And I hope that you're excited about what you're going to do and to thrive in 2025. You know, today has been a really cold day here in the Pacific Northwest. And I look around the country and I feel so sorry for the people that are in California going through the fires again. We should all pray for them and their families. And also on the East Coast, where they're having snow in places like they've never had before, like New Orleans and different places, Florida, and freezing cold. You know, the weather is changing all around us. And a lot of people say it is climate change. But, you know, the Bible tells us there's going to come a day. And I remember reading this over 30 years ago. It says it's going to come a day when you won't know summer from winter or spring from fall. That everything that we consider normal as our seasons will be all confused. And I'm looking at that take place today. But one of the things that I want to talk to you about today is also continue giving you tools about becoming debt-free. You know, last week I talked to you about setting goals, and I gave you a basic understanding of setting goals. That is the first thing you need to do. The second thing that you need to do is create a budget. And I know you don't like the word budget, and I usually call it a FPS, which means a financial positioning system. F, financial, P, positioning, S, system. And that's like a GPS. What it does, it identifies where you are and gives you a clear path to where you want to be or where you want to go. And so a FPS will do the same thing. But first of all, you got to identify where you are. So you don't need an elaborate program. All you need is a yellow notepad, and you draw a line right down the middle. Take a ruler and draw a line right down the middle of the notepad. On one side, put budget. Okay? On the other side, put debts. And so you write down what your bills are on the left side, all right? On the right side, I want you to put how much each one of those bills are for the month. And then at the end of the page, if it takes you more than one page, that tells you got a problem, okay? But at the end of the page, I want you to add it all up. Don't worry about the amount. I know for some of you, the amount is like, oh man, I don't want to look at this. But if you don't look at it, it's only going to get bigger. I'm dating myself by saying this, but that's okay. I can tell you I'm over 70, so it doesn't matter to me. I've seen enough of life to know that I know what I'm talking about. You remember the movie Wizard of Oz, the original one, with Julie Garland? And when Toto ran away from her and they went to see what was he called? Oh, the Amazing Oz, the all-knowing Oz. And they went to see him, and he was this big, gigantic figure, and who wants to see the great Oz? And then Toto got away from her, and he ran behind the curtain. And so she was afraid, and she ran behind the curtain to get Toto, her little dog. And when she got there, and she saw this little munchkin about 2 feet tall that was speaking into this big machine that made him appear bigger than life. So what is my point here? My point is simply this. As long as she was looking at the screen, he was this huge, big, amazing Oz. But when she stepped behind the curtain and looked at who he really was, he was just a little bitty munchkin with no real power at all. And as long as you run away from your bills, they become the amazing, huge Oz. But when you turn around and face your bills, they become a munchkin too. And so the way we shrink your bills down to the munchkin size where you're in control, where you're managing your money and your money's not managing you, is we get a realistic view of how much your debt is. You know, I like to say to people, let's say, for instance, somebody walked up to you and said, you know what? I believe God just told me to pay off all your debts. If you would give me that amount, I'll write you a check right now and pay off all your debts. How many out of 100 people, how many people you think could really do that? I would say less than 10. Because most people don't know how much they owe because they don't want to face it. And so therefore they just keep, it's like a hamster on a treadmill. They just keep running and running and running, making the monthly payments, skipping a monthly payment, making a monthly payment. And it's a never ending cycle. But when you write it down and you get that bottom line, whatever that bottom line is, now you have a starting point. Now you have a place where you can start working on it and you can see it begin to reduce and become smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets down to that little bitty Wizard of Oz. So, and I just want to challenge you to do that. And next week, I'll tell you some things of how to do that. And, you know, one of the things we want to talk about is finding extra money. One of the things I hear a lot from people say, where am I going to get that kind of money? Where am I going to get extra money? Most of us have extra money that we don't even think about. And I want to show you how to find extra money. So that's all for tonight. This is Frank at Bottom Line Ministries Debt Free. And I want to remind you that God loves you, He cares for you, and debt is not your destiny. So I'll see you next week. Have a great week.